Good evening and welcome to BIMS Cares. I'm Leslie Townsell, the COO of BIMS, and today we have a live Q&A that will be moderated by Chante Lively. Chante is a native of Atlanta, Georgia, a 2021 graduate of Nova Southeastern University with a BS in marine biology and a minors in global engagement and Spanish. Currently, Chante works as a marine education fellow for the University of Georgia Marine Extension and Georgia Sea Grant at the UGA Marine Education Center and Aquarium on Skidaway Island, outside of Savannah, Georgia. In this position, she teaches the field of Georgia coastal ecology and marine science education to visiting public and school groups at the UGA Center and Aquarium. I will pass it on to you, Chante.
All right, thank you, Leslie. So welcome everybody to BIMS Week 2. It's been a really great few days of really fun activities and workshops. I've loved it all. But you're here today to listen to our live Q&A with our therapist, Patience Riley. So Patience, if you've been watching any of our other videos and activities and workshops, she's been giving us some great information. But she's a licensed therapist in Georgia, Florida, and New England with specialized training in parental mood and anxiety disorders. She works with clients to help them move from a place from surviving to thriving without compromising their mental health. And that's great because, it's BIMS Care. We're here to care about our mental health. So, Patience, so glad you're here and we can get started.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a fun week.
So if you guys have any questions for Patience, please put them down in the chat in our YouTube where you're live streaming it. You'll be able to get your answers as soon as we get them all here. But I can start us off with our first question. So Patience, how do you find a therapist? Because I know personally, this pandemic time has really hit me hard, and it's hit a lot of my family, a lot of my friends hard. And so this therapy is definitely something that has come up a lot in conversation, but we just don't know where to start. So how do you find a therapist? What's our first step?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different options and ways that you can go about finding a therapist. I'm happy that you brought up family and friends that into the mix. If you feel comfortable, that's first and foremost your comfort level. If there is a family member, if there is a friend who you feel comfortable talking about therapy with, I say you can look for a therapist just like you look for somebody who does your hair. You are trying to find somebody to essentially help you walk through life. And so just like you want somebody that can do your hair, you want a dentist, you want a doctor, you would ask for recommendations for that person. Why not ask the people who are closest to you, who you actually trust their judgment? If you hear somebody who's talking about therapy, if they say that they have a therapist and you're okay with them knowing that you're interested in therapy, that could be a really good place to start because they've already tried that person out. So they can also let you know how that person has worked with them. So they can give you a little bit of the inside scoop on the therapist too. Let you know kind of how do they act during their sessions? How have you found them helpful? Is it somebody that you would continue to see? So I think that's a really great place to start as long as you feel comfortable going that route. Now, if you are somebody who does have insurance, you could always check your insurance panel. So just like you do with your primary care provider, your doctors, your dentist, you can look for a therapist the same exact way if you're looking for your insurance to cover it. Also, what some places of employment have are employee assistant programs. With employee assistant programs, a lot of times to get that information, you do have to contact your HR department, but you don't have to let your HR department know that you're contacting employee assistants to try to get a therapist. Employee assistants can cover so many different things. just random things from like taxes and stuff. So it just covers a bunch of other things that are underneath it. So you don't have to say, please give me this employee assistant number so I can get a therapist. Like you don't have to say that at all.
Okay.
But you could ask your HR department, like, hey, do we have an employee assistant program with our benefits? And a lot of times what it is it's a 1-800 number that you would call. And then when you call the employee assistant program, you can then let them know what you're looking for and what you're seeking. And this is a nice way to kind of like test therapy out. Say if you're just like, hey, not sure what this is like, if I'm going to like it, you can get connected with a therapist. Now, with the employee assistant program, they connect you with someone. So you don't necessarily get to pick your person. So that's a whole other thing. We can also get into like, how is my therapist a good fit?
Yeah.
we that whole thing. But this could be a nice way. They like cover a few sessions. A lot of them will cover like 3 to 8 therapy sessions for you. And if that is a route that you want to go and then you want to use your insurance, it's always nice to say, hey, what therapists accept my employee assistant program? And then do they accept my insurance as well? And then you can kind of do that flow and just get it all covered. And say you don't have insurance or you just don't want to use your insurance. Because I've had some clients like that too, who are just like, I don't want to use my insurance at all. What you can do is there is a directory called Open Path Collective. And I did let Tiara know that I'm going to send an email that will have a list of some resources for folks. But Open Path Collective is a directory that has a list of Black and Brown therapists specifically, just because they've created it more so for Black and Brown people to get a lower cost treatment. So a lot of the therapy sessions, I don't quote me 100%, but the therapist can range anywhere between $40 to $60 for individual therapy. And I believe they can't be any more than $80 for couples therapy. So they do a sliding scale for people based off of their financial situation and where you kind of fall on that scale. But Open Path Collective is a directory where you can get that low cost treatment. Also, Dark Beauty Healing is another directory. And with that directory, it is more so for Black women and Black girls. And on that site, it gives a directory of therapists for you. Mostly Black and Brown therapists as well, but not everybody is who's on there. But what these therapists have done is they have gifted 10 free therapy hours. So if you find a therapist on there, what you would want to ask them, just if you know that you're having a little bit of a hard time with the fee part, is, hey, I see that you offer the 10 free sessions. Are you giving the 10 free sessions to one person or are you spreading it out? Because they may say, oh yeah, I am offering the 10 free sessions, but I'm giving it to 10 different people. So maybe your first session is free. So that's something just to kind of keep in mind with Dark Beauty Healing. So I do think that that's a really cool initiative that the therapists are gifting 10 free hours, but it's just, hey, how are they gifting those hours? And then also the Loveland Foundation. And like I said, I'll have all these resources to go out in an email for you all so that you don't have to, if you want to jot them down, please go ahead. But the Loveland Foundation is gifting free therapy sessions to Black girls and Black women as well. So even if you're already seeing a therapist, you can still apply. Like you don't have to be new to therapy. You could have been seeing your therapist for 2 years and you're just like, hey, I want to apply. And I believe they pay for like 3 to 4 free sessions for you. So if you are paying out of pocket, then that's something that you don't have to pay for a couple of your sessions. So those are some of our places where we can get connected to them if you don't want to like go with your insurance. if you're needing low cost treatment. And then there is always the option that you can self-pay as well. When it comes to a friend of mine, her therapist, she really wanted to see her. She doesn't take my friend's insurance, but my friend was like, I really want to work with her. So she just pays her out of pocket. So sometimes when you find that person that you really want to work with, sometimes you end up just doing it that way. So I like to think about it in the cost form is like, what's something that you really, really like or that you really, really love? And I really, really like good food.
Me
so
too.
That's what I'm like, Chante, I know I'm not the only one. Like, if we think about that one thing that we really, really like I went and ate out today and yeah, and for, I spent like $15. So if I spend like $15 a week, you could be getting close to what it could be for your therapy session. So sometimes we have to just be intentional about what we feel is important for our cost and if we can cut. But sometimes if the person we really want to see is out of pocket, sometimes that's our option as well.
I'm kind of curious for the cost, what can therapy or finding a therapist, even just one session, what can that be arranged? How much could that cost? If I'm just like, I don't know if it's within my pocket at all, if before I try and go in some of these resources that you named before.
I think that's a really good question, actually. A lot of times therapists will have, if you find them on a directory, they will typically have their price on there anyway, but typically it depends on your area. So if you live in a pretty costly area, your therapist got to pay, they got to pay their rent. So they got to pay their rent. So their costs are going to reflect the area. And a lot of times the therapists are going to charge around the same range. So there's some therapists, I would say on the lower end, may charge you like $75, and that's on the lower end, but you have some therapists that can get up to like $200 easily. So it can be a little costly when you're just kind of thinking, oh my gosh, I'm just spinning this outright. As the therapist, the way that I also look at it is it's a part of that health factor. So how much are people paying their trainers? How much are people paying their dentists? How much are people paying their medical providers? How much is that? But it could be one of the questions. I like for people to kind of either email your therapist, maybe try to do a little bit of research if they have a profile or if they have a website or if they have an email address. Ask that question. And there's nothing wrong with asking that question. So like how you said, do I even know if this is an option for me? And then on top of that, you can ask the therapist like, hey, do you provide a sliding scale? So that's one of our terms. So do you provide a sliding scale to see anybody? Or are you doing any pro bono work? Have you done any pro bono work at all? Because one of the things that we do in our field is pro bono work. And some therapists will actually have certain slots set out for people within like their schedule and their caseload for them to be able to offer free sessions for. So I think sometimes people don't know that they can ask those questions to a therapist. And so that could be a really good one of, hey, you really, really, really want to work with this person. They tell you their rate. You're not 100% sure if that's something that you can keep up with long term. So you ask, do you have a sliding scale? Are you offering any pro bono client spots or anything like that, and seeing what that person says?
Okay. So I know besides cost, finding a therapist is like, finding the perfect shoe, finding the perfect dress for that event. It takes a while. But like, what are some of the things that I should be looking out for to find my perfect therapist? I don't know what to do for any of this.
Yeah. So this is going to be different for per person, of course. So this is where I said like directories can come in handy because people give like a little blurb. So they kind of give their elevator spill. on what they have. So like my big spill when I talk to people is I like to move people out of that surviving space to thriving without compromising their mental health. I like to teach simple but complex techniques that can be used in day-to-day life. So somebody might be like, okay, yeah, I want to be able to use something in my day-to-day life and I want it to be simple. That's my person. Like, I'm tired of just being out here surviving. I want to start thriving. How can this work? So looking at their language and how they kind of write. Of course, some of us write different than how we talk and how we actually maneuver. It could be nice to see. Some therapists have started adding videos to like their directories or to their websites. A lot of therapists do have websites. Some people do have ratings as well. If you do have any helping professional friends, I have had some friends who have said, hey, patients, I'm looking into a therapist. These are a couple of the people that I came across. Do you think that they would be a good fit for me? Just because they know that I know them. And so it could also be, even if it isn't like a helping professional friend. So like Chante, if you were just like patients, hey, I'm trying to see somebody. And because you know me and you know a little bit about what's going on with me, I found these 3 people. I'm kind of going back and forth between them. Can you look over their profiles for me? And since I know you, I might be able to say, hey, from reading this person's stuff, they say that they challenge people's thoughts. They use a holistic type of view. They can have sessions with their people walking out in nature and stuff like that. And that seems like something that you're interested in. So yeah, walking and talking therapy is like a thing.
Wow.
and so that's why I kind of,
fun.
yeah. So it's, yeah. In a previous role that I had, I would do that with some of my clients, and it was, you would have some really good conversations that way. But like that person may be able to pull out from the profiles or the websites some things that connect with you and might be able to help you make that decision. But ultimately, it'll probably come down to you booking and seeing them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and figuring it out once you see them, which is a whole other thing we could get into also.
Yeah, I think we can maybe get into that of when I get there, when I physically have chosen to meet this person, they've kind of on the screen have checked all my boxes. Mm-hmm. When I get there, what exactly should I really be asking them? What's my first things to see? Mm-hmm. Questions for that first consultation.
Yeah, so that's a good thing to do too. See if your prospective therapist actually offers a consultation. Some therapists do, some therapists don't. It's not required for anybody to offer one, but some people do. Just because it could be nice to see if you're a good fit before you even book that first session. So getting on the consultation, you're able to hear the person's voice. Sometimes you're able to see them if they do like virtual, if they do a virtual one. But if anything, you could possibly hear their voice. So some of the things that you could ask them is, or they may actually ask you, what has you wanting to schedule an appointment? So, and I'm thinking about my own consultations that I do with people. One, I want to know, why are you trying to come see me? And if that person doesn't ask you that question, you could always say, hey, this is why I'm interested in scheduling an appointment with you. Is this something that you've seen? Is this something that you've worked with before? Have you seen improvements? Have you had clients who have actually seen a change after you've worked with them as it results to whatever particular issue that you're coming in with? So that can be a great question to ask them in the consultation. And they can let you know, like, yes, that's all I work with my clients, or no, I don't really have very much experience, so I can refer you to one of my colleagues. So maybe you're not wasting your time. Another good thing to ask them is, when do you see your clients? Because sometimes we can find a really good match or a really good fit for us, but your schedules just don't add up. Like, and that can be a little disheartening because it's like, oh my gosh, this is just the schedule. But the schedule is really important because that's the time that you're supposed to see them. So if your schedules don't line up, if they're not available to see you, if you're not free to see them, then that's another thing that can get in the way. Also, how often are they able to see you, or how often they'll give you a recommendation as well after they see you for the first time and do an assessment. But it still is your process too. You're the one that is leading it. So you do have a lot more control, I think, sometimes than we think when you go into it. It's all about you. It's not about the therapist. So yeah. And then of course, going back to, how is the cost and all of that going to come in? Knowing all of those things, if you can find that out in a consultation or before you see them the first time, I think that's a really good way to get it started. But you can kind of see if your personalities mesh, then that works really well.
Yeah, this is good to know. Sometimes the way it's portrayed, like never noticed or been to therapy before, or know anybody who's in therapy, you're just like, okay, I don't know where to start. Now I know where to start. But then what's my next step? How do I even really know if this person's going to be for me when I first step in the room? What am I going to be expecting? And so these are really good things to have just in the back of my head, or just even things to be able to tell other people when they're like, I'm wondering if I should do therapy, or if I should have a talk with a therapist at any time. So
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's any questions from our YouTube audience, we have a little bit of time left, so we'll be down to ask them. If not, I have one more question. So this is one question that you got from on Tuesday night patients. It said, somebody had asked, how do you remember to start doing these things? I don't remember what these things are when things are rough. Like, remember when you get back to your office after a rough moment. Maybe they're referring to if it's been a rough day for you, how do you get de-stress and deal with it?
Yeah, I'm thinking, so kind of recapping with Tuesday. So Monday, we started off by talking about stress and self-care. And then Tuesday, we talked about like stress responses and trauma responses. And then we went through some grounding and mindfulness techniques. So I'm going to assume that the question is asking maybe about those activities that we went over on Tuesday. So what I would recommend is practicing those activities when you are not upset. So that's why I think it's very important for your wellness, your mental well-being, to just be a natural part of your daily life. So like brushing your teeth. When you get up in the morning, and a lot of times before you go to bed at night, that is one thing that is inserted into your daily life. So inserting these things into your daily life, if you're doing them when you are not upset, when you're not frustrated, it almost becomes like muscle memory. And things that are a part of our general muscle memory are easier to incorporate and easier to do when we are feeling overwhelmed, when we are feeling upset. Another thing that you can do is if you know that you get upset at work, and I'm bringing this up since they
those days.
Yeah, when you go back to your office, you can have sticky notes on your desk. Like, you can also give yourself a reminder. If say you wanted to do one of the grounding techniques, like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method that we discussed, you could just put on a sticky note 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or deep breaths, or like you can actually give yourself some mental reminders to help get you started as well. Especially if this is new. Whenever you're learning something new, there is a possibility that you're like, you may not think about it until you've already like hit 100. And then once you've come down, you're like, dang, I did not do that grounding technique that I saw during BIMS week, and maybe that could have been really helpful. So you could put sticky notes in the places where oftentimes you know that you're elevated, and do it before you're at that moment. So like right now, if you have a home office and that's where you work, or if you happen to still be at your place of work, then you could even give yourself that sticky note right now and put it in a place that you can actually see. So that might be a little helpful to help you right then there in the moment.
I think we can maybe do one quick question.
Okay.
And so we have one from the audience, and it says, this is from Davis Jeanette. What do you think about a podcast that focuses on mental health for Black women, such as Therapy for Black Girls? Do you think there are good additional sources for women in the workplace? That might be two different questions, but.
Okay. So, well, I'll take the first part. What do I think about them? So I love Therapy for Black Girls, the podcast, personally. So I think it's great. I think it's a great resource for people to actually hear therapists, because Dr. Joy oftentimes will bring therapists on. So a lot of the therapists that are in the directory, she will bring on as guests as well, or colleagues and friends and stuff like that of hers in the field. So I think it's a nice way to also hear, like, kind of how we're having a conversation now, like therapists are just regular people and they're humans, but it also lets you kind of get that humanized part of them. But then you can also see how they talk, how they provide recommendations, how they provide tips, how they say that they work with their clients. So I think it's a nice way for you to get chunks of information, to start exploring that option and to see, like, oh, maybe this is a type of person that I might try to work with. And then, do you think these are good additional sources from women in the workplace? I'm going to say I love podcasts. I think that they're a great resource for people to use. If this question is asking, do I have other additional resources for women in the workplace? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Podcast specific, I can't think of any coming just right off the top of my head. But like I said previously, I will be sending out a email to Tierra with resources. So I could do like a quick little check to see if I have any additional podcast resources specifically for women in the workplace. And if I do, then I'll add it to there. So I hope that I'm answering your question.
I think you might have answered their question really well. So, and I also think we're at time. So
that was quick.
It was very quick. It was great though.
Yeah, I love talking. I love chatting about everything mental health, and that 30 minutes went by really fast.
I'm gonna close this.
It did. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. If the audience has any questions about BIMS Cares, make sure you follow Patience at bring_a_folding_chair.
And me.
And I'm sorry, that's Chante. And you can always follow Patience at whoamama_blog on IG and Facebook. That's HOWHOAMAMA_blog. Make sure to follow Black and Marine Science for more events this week. And up next, we have the BIMS networking social happening right now. So I'll see you guys over on that channel. Make sure you tune in. You don't want to miss it.